Welcome to the show, everybody. You're listening to the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. That's right, you're listening to Beyond Reason Radio here on News Radio 102.5 WFLA and BeyondReasonRadio.com. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, and producing tonight as well, we have Michael Formasano. It's the weekend, Mike. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. I'm hanging in there. It's a little wet out tonight, but...
Yeah, just a little. Oh, well, that's good.
It is what it is.
They don't need to be outside anyways. They need to be inside listening to me.
I second that.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. The phone numbers to call in, 407-674-1025, toll-free 855-545-1025. I'm just reading about the Marines that were killed from this radical Islamist named Abdulaziz. He shot someone at a recruiting center, drove over to a Navy research base, killed 4 Marines. I was just reading about one of the Marines, Lance Corporal Skip, and he was actually in the middle of tweeting his girlfriend, Lance Corporal Skip. Sorry, I lost it here for a second. Lance Corporal Skip Wells, who's 21, he was actually texting with his girlfriend, and they were just having a normal conversation. She said, can't wait anymore. And he says, yes, you can, honey. I don't know what they were talking about. But then he says he texted to her active shooter. And she was kind of confused, the girlfriend, and said, you're so weird. Thought he was joking. And then she sent later, I love you. And never heard from him again. We had another Marine who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, had a couple of Purple Hearts. He was killed. The 3 other Marines slain in the massacre have been identified as 40-year-old Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Sullivan, 27-year-old Sergeant Carson Holmquist, and 37-year-old Staff Sergeant David Wyatt. And they just show, I'm looking at a story here that they just show the pictures of the guys, and stand-up guys. Stand-up guys who had no chance. Literally. They had no chance. They had no way of being able to defend themselves from Abdulaziz, who came in shooting with an AK-47, by the way. AK-47. Well, what do we know about this guy? We almost knew a lot of this stuff immediately, by the way. But what do we know about Abdulaziz? Well, he's a naturalized U.S. citizen. He was a Muslim. He had traveled overseas to Jordan, maybe to visit family. There's some sources saying he went to Yemen. He wrote a blog saying negative things, saying radical Islamic things, but also saying negative things about the country. Interesting, this isn't getting a lot of attention. This is from Newsmax. ISIS-linked Twitter account mentioned Chattanooga minutes before the shooting. They put American dogs, soon you will see wonders. Hashtag Chattanooga. Hashtag USA. Luckily, this guy was killed when police got involved. So we know that. We know he was Islamic. We know he had trouble with the country. We know he sent out the blog and so forth. So knowing all this, is there really any question on his motive, especially the fact that he attacked Marines and U.S. soldiers? Especially in a time when ISIS said they were going to go after United States military. Any question about the motive here? Well, I have a montage here for you. And this is the media from yesterday and today. And they're going to talk about the motive. And now I gave you all these things that we know about him and more. It seems like he was armed. I just heard from Fox News that he was heavily armed, wore an ammo vest, and was bent on waging war against America. But this is what the media had to say about this.
They're still looking to figure out a motive. What would prompt 24-year-old Mohammed Abdulaziz to do something like this, open fire at these two military facilities?
We do not yet know the motive at this point. I think that's very important to emphasize.
Not someone who had a very clear motive to do something so extreme.
The big unknown right now, motive.
What drove him to do this?
I know we don't know the motive of this young man.
Motive has to be a central question in the investigation.
It's too early to know what exactly his motive is.
We do not yet have any idea on a motive for these crimes.
We don't know, really, a motive in this case.
We still don't really know a motive here. Why? What was the killer's motive?
We don't know the motive of this particular shooter.
Again, I want to stress that we don't know what the motive is at this point.
We obviously don't know the motive.
We don't know the gunman's motive.
We don't know the motive.
We don't know the motive.
We may never know the exact motive.
He was a nice kid from a nice family, and he was as American as anybody else.
As American as anybody else. We don't know the motive. We have no idea. Not, it's one thing to say we don't know for sure because they have to cover their bases. But did you hear what they were saying? It wasn't that we don't know the motive. It was we have no idea what could possibly do this. We might never know the motive. And Obama basically made the same tone yesterday as well. He made recent travels to he made a trip to Jordan and Yemen, as I made before. Radical Islamic comments in his blogs, other things. This is all not really new to tonight. We knew a lot of this morning. Why are they so bent? I don't get it. Why are they so bent? They'll speculate on anything else. Everything else, they'll speculate immediately. With the Dylan Roof thing, they'll speculate on. Remember when Dylan Roof shot that church in Charleston? Immediately, law enforcement said this is a hate crime. This is obviously a racist. Obviously hated blacks. He said it immediately. Okay, that's fine with that. He was. They're right. So why were they so quick to do it then, and now we are so afraid to say any kind of motive? And you might say, well, that's just the media. They don't want to get into opinion. They want to be objective. Give me a break. Give me a break. They're speculating all the time about everything. That's what they do. But in this case, they were so afraid to give a motive. We're so politically correct. It can't possibly be a radical Islamic terrorist. No, it's not saying he was directly connected to ISIS or directly connected to Al-Qaeda. But when you just look at the facts that we have already, the fact that, for one, he was a Muslim. I remember they did the same thing with the Boston bombings. We found out they were Muslim, and they were still very cautious to say this was a terrorist attack by them. It was a Muslim terrorist attack. Well, that's exactly what it was. Why are we so afraid to do this? When are we going to name our enemy? I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's just, it's mind-boggling to me. We're looking at the enemy in the face. The enemy is telling us what they are, what they want to do, who they are, and we ignore them? We pretend it doesn't exist? We think if it doesn't exist, it'll just go away? Unbelievable. Even this guy was a lone nut job, which even though he must, if this is true about this tweet sent out from an ISIS Twitter account, hashtag Chattanooga, before the shooting happened, there's obvious evidence right there. He probably had a link to ISIS. But he was probably radicalized by them. Why can't we just say it? I mean, just say, looks like he was probably a radical Islamic terrorist that had a problem with America and the American military and wanted to commit some kind of jihad against the military. That's it. I just said it. Was that difficult? Guess not. I guess it is. I don't know. 407-674-1025. And my main question about all this, too, is this, that I want to get your take on. What is there anything we can do to stop these attacks? It seems like I have a feeling we're going to have more of these. This is just going to be a normal part of our society. In fact, after 9/11, they would talk to Homeland Security officials, and they said they were shocked that this kind of stuff wasn't happening because Al-Qaeda was more into the big attacks. But ISIS likes these small attacks. They like to attack any way they possibly can. It's just how ISIS is. And it's going to be hard to find people like this guy who are radicalized individually on the internet. They're still influenced by ISIS. And of course, we're not going to go over to the Middle East and destroy ISIS. No. There's no political want or desire to do that. We send a couple bombs a day, from the air, and then we see a video the next day of them lining up on the streets with all kinds of vehicles and weapons and guns and doing these public executions, and somehow we can't even begin to destroy them. So if we're going to let them thrive over there, they're going to keep doing this stuff. And they're going to radicalize young people. They're going to radicalize young Muslims. They're going to radicalize the prisons. That's going to come up next. So what can we do to stop this? Can I tell you? It is amazing to me that we have become a society that is disarming the good guys. We've disarmed the good guys. We have the United States military. Can we all agree that they're the good guys? Mike's in the control room, nodding. Yes, they're the good guys. And we've disarmed them. They cannot carry weapons on any military facilities. Isn't that amazing? The one person you would think they would be able to. And I said earlier, they didn't have a chance. They didn't have a chance. The only thing that we can do to beat back attacks like this is protect ourselves. To be able to individual vigilance. And when I say vigilance, I'm not only saying keeping aware of what's going on around you. Yes, we need to do that. And obviously the media is not doing that. They're doing the complete opposite of that. At least the television media. They're doing the complete opposite of being aware of what's going on around them. How can they not connect the dots? How can they not see it? And it seems like they're trying not to. There's an effort not to connect the dots. How can they not see what's going on here? But we have to be vigilant. We have to be able to protect ourselves and our families. And yet the first reaction to this by a lot of people is to disarm even more. There's talks to disarm police. We've already disarmed the military here. We're wanting to disarm good American individuals. It makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me that when there are attacks like this, our first reaction is to disarm the good guys. That's the only thing that can stop it. I say over and over again in this show, and I completely believe it, that the only thing that can stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. That's it. And you say, well, if we got rid of all guns, are you that naive? We're not going to get rid of all guns. This country is awash in guns right now. We're not going to be able to confiscate them all. Not only that, but the border's wide open. The border's wide open. So they'll just smuggle them across the border. So this idea to get rid of guns. And this is a complete aside here. But we talk about how it's like the very existence of guns. It means they're going to be used like this. If that were the case, every gun range in America would have deaths like this every day. Because there's a place where the guns exist. There's a place where they use them, they want to use them, and yet this kind of stuff usually doesn't happen. Why? Because, you can fire back. You can defend yourself. Why are we disarming the good guys in our society? That has to stop. We have to be able, because you're not going to be able to stop attacks like this, especially in the social media, digital media, internet age, or not. So at least let me be able to defend myself and my family and my friends and the people around me if we can't defend the country as a whole. 407-674-1025. I'm also a lot of other topics to get into today. I'm going to get into the Iran nuke deal, and people are making the point that I made 3 days ago. Also, I want to get into the Bruce Jenner speech at the ESPYs. There's a lot to say about that, and we're going to get to your phone calls as well. 407-674-1025. You're listening to Beyond Reason Radio, News Radio 1025 WFLA, and BeyondReasonRadio.com.
It would be beyond reason not to listen to Yaffee on your TuneIn Radio app. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio. Listen to the latest episodes of Beyond Reason. Download the podcast at Spreaker.com.
You're listening to the voice of reason, the voice of truth through everything in the world that is beyond reason. We went over some things in the previous segment that to me are beyond reason. The fact that we can't see what's going on right in front of us. The fact that we are disarming the good guys in our society. Amazing to me. 476-741-1025. But I want to get into something else in the news this week. A lot of comments on this. I haven't had a chance really to comment myself much because I only have a show once a week. But hopefully that'll change in the future. We need to get this show on more than one day a week. But talk about that. Hopefully that'll happen in the future. But the other big news of the week was the Iran nuke deal, which has been, the negotiations have been going on forever. The Iran nuke deal, we finally had it. Obama was praising it. Everyone says good. I guess Iran's never going to do anything bad to the U.S. anymore. They're never going to ever get a nuke. I mean, yes, they're allowed to keep 5,000 centrifuges there. Yes, it gives them a 10-year breakout time and all this stuff. Yes, they're going to be able to build up their military. Well, we have Susan Rice, a former ambassador to the UN, who's going to make us feel all better about this Iran nuke deal. Mike, can you get that audio ready for me of Susan Rice? This is what she said to make us feel all better about it.
It is possible, and in fact, we should expect that some portion of that money would go to the Iranian military and could potentially be used for the kinds of bad behavior that we have seen in the region up until now.
All right. Okay. That doesn't really make me feel any better. I tried. No, well, what she's basically saying is we've lifted the sanctions and they're going to get a ton of money. They're going to be able to sell their oil. Of course, they're going to sell it to China and Russia, so that's good, I guess. Especially China, so it's going to help China out too. They're going to get all this new influx of money, and I'm sure they have the best intentions. Well, not according to Susan Rice. Oh, they're going to spend the money on terrorist attacks, and they're going to build up their military. Yeah, but we need this deal. Yeah, we have prisoners. We have prisoners in Iranian prisons that weren't even a part of this deal. And of course, when Obama was asked about that, well, this was about stopping them from getting nukes. So that's a totally separate issue. Okay, fine. I'll give you that. Totally separate issue. So why did we lift their arms embargo? Wouldn't that be a totally separate issue? Why did we lift the arms embargo? Part of this deal. Well, I mean, we have they can keep enrichment levels at 3.67%. They can keep a certain amount of centrifuges. But the one thing that nobody was talking about until recently is that allows them to build up their military. It takes rid of the restrictions and the embargoes to build up their military. Now, it limits them on building up missiles designed for nuclear weapons, but it gives them the embargo. It basically lifts the embargo and gets rid of the restrictions that will give them the ability to build more conventional military weapons, more tanks, more submarines, more ballistic missiles, all these restrictions that we had on them. In 5 years, it's going to be completely removed. 5 years, they'll be completely... Now, shouldn't that be a separate deal? If we ask Obama, why did you let this go? Or isn't that a separate thing from them getting a nuke? That's what you said about the people in the prisons in Iran. So isn't this a totally separate deal? So what we have now is we have the Iranian state. They're going to get tons of money. And the only good part about this for us is gas prices will go down because it'll add oil into the market. Supplies will go up, price goes down. That's called economics. I get that. So I guess the American people will probably be happy because their gas prices will go down. But Iran will use this to build up their military. They will use it to fund terrorist actions all over the Middle East. And but that's okay. They won't get a nuke, and 10 years. After 10 years, who knows? I'll just bring it back up. And this isn't me saying this. This is the Obama administration, former Obama administration official Susan Rice saying this. But that was the first thing. Nobody was talking about that. That was the first thing that caught my attention. That immediately we lifted restrictions on their military. They're going to use this for good means? Are we sure they're not going to abuse that? I don't think he cares. Charles Krauthammer had a piece out in his column, and he was talking about this. He said the Iran deal is worse than it is. And he basically makes the point that I just made. I didn't realize this. He says, are conventional weapons not a separate issue? After all, conventional by definition means non-nuclear. Why are we giving up the embargoes? Because Iran, joined by Russia, our reset partner, sprang the demand at the last minute, calculating that Obama and Secretary of State John Kerry were so desperate for a deal that they would cave. And that's exactly what happened. Here's the thing about this. We were winning. The sanctions were working. It was really crippling the regime, crippling their military, crippling their economics over there. And we say, oh, but we have to do business with them. Oh, we have to help them. Why? How about we defeat them? And we're not going to be willing to defeat them militarily, so let's continue to do this. Maybe we can get something good out of it. Maybe we can actually get something really good out of it. Regime change, maybe in the future, or something. Totally destabilize their military so they can't attack Israel, so they can't attack their neighbors, so they can't fund terrorists. We were doing that. It was working, but we were so desperate for a deal that we did this. And even they admit that it will help their military. Interesting. So what do we get out of this? Well, we get some cheap gas, I guess. Oh, we kind of get the satisfaction that they won't build nuclear weapons. Oh, yeah, I'm sure they're going to use what they have for peaceful means. Jay in Plant City, you were on Beyond Reason Radio with Michael Yaffee. How is it going, my friend? Jay, turn the channel.
I was going to comment on the ISA, but since you was on that subject, let me just make one quick comment.
Okay.
It's been almost 40 years since the Iranian Revolution, and Pakistan developed a bomb, North Korea developed a bomb, and Iran has much more technical know-how than they do, much more money, much more resources. Is there anybody out there who really believe that they couldn't have already had the bomb if they really wanted the bomb? And I tell you what, not talking.
Who knows? They might already have it. Who knows?
Well, here's the thing. Okay, then. Here's the thing. Talking to them, gave them 10,000 centrifuges. Not talking to them, they built a covert heavy water plant. Not talking to them. Did you hear what they said? They already have enough material for 10 bombs. Even that, not Yahoo didn't know that because he'd been spreading it around the world. So not talking to them, I guess. In the next 2 years, they can have enough material for 100 bombs or 20,000 centrifuges. It was time for a change, okay? Now,
so what's your main point then? Do you think this is a good deal then? Or?
My main point is people are stupid if they say they could have already had a bomb in the last 40 years in Pakistan and North Korea, which don't nearly have the technical ability that these people have.
So why did we do this deal then, do you think?
Why would they do this deal? They're doing this. Well,
not Iran, but us.
The basic argument, we can't trust them. So y'all saying, oh, but we can trust them if we put more sanctions on them, then we can trust them. No, you can't trust them. The military expert said the other day, the only way to make 100% sure that they don't have the bomb is invade the country and occupy the country.
I get that, but why did we? Why do you think Obama did this? Why?
It's not why Obama did it, it's why they did it.
Well, I know why they did it. They wanted it so they could get more money for their country and build up the military and fool us. But why did Obama? Why are we doing this? Do you have any idea?
Because he's supposed to be there as president to stop him from building a nuclear bomb.
And you agree with me that's a little naive then?
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying if they don't want it, if they don't miss my whole point, you're missing my point.
No, I get your point. If they wanted to build the bomb, they could have built the bomb already.
Already built a bomb, maybe 30 years ago.
Even though
15 years ago, he wrote in his book that they were 3 years away.
I got you.
Was right. They was probably 3 months away if they don't wanted to build a bomb.
So you're saying they didn't want to build the bomb?
Huh?
You're saying Iran did not want to build a bomb, right?
I'm saying there's some hard lines. Oh, for sure, they want the same thing that some hard lines over here want. They want to go to war with you. They would love for us to bomb them. They would love for. I'm sure there are some over there, but they've been kept in check. Remember,
by who?
Iran has a much more open society. The women, they got.
All right, Jay, you're totally off topic. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was trying to get to the point here. You made an excellent point. You were saying if they wanted a bomb, they could have already made the bomb. Okay, I probably agree with you. At least to a point. I think our sanctions were finally starting to stabilize our military. But I was trying to get to the point, if that's the case, if they wanted to build a bomb, if they could have built it or already have building it, then why in the world are we doing this stupid deal? To stop them from doing something they could do anyways? Or already have done? If they didn't want to do it, then we don't need to make a deal to stop them because they don't want to do it anyways. I was trying to get to that point. I couldn't seem to get to that for him. 407-674-1025. You're listening. I got a special guest in the next segment. We're actually going to talk about an interesting topic in history that's been all over social media, so we're going to get deep into that topic. Her name? Well, she's known on the social media world as Liberty Girl. We're going to talk about interesting topic. You got to say 407-674-1025. You're listening Beyond Reason Radio, News Radio 1025 WFLA and BeyondReasonRadio.com.
Download the iHeartRadio app and catch the Beyond Reason Radio podcast. Just search Bud Henninger or stream the show live by searching News Radio 1025 WFLA. If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. Now, back to Beyond Reason Radio.
Yes, welcome back. You're listening to the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. My name's Michael Yaffee. We're here every Friday night at 8 p.m., but if you miss the show live, you can catch it on my website, beyondreasonradio.com. Speaking of the internet and social media, there's been a huge debate lately on social media. It's all surrounded this whole Confederate flag controversy. Should we ban the flag? Is it racist? And then the debate got interesting because it got into the issue of Did the Confederate States, was the Civil War caused by slavery? Or was it states' rights, or was it a tariff or something? What was the real cause of the Civil War? Because you ask the most common person, they would think it was slavery. And then you ask a lot of the people who like the Confederate flag, a lot of people from the South, they would say it had nothing to do with slavery, it was state rights. And I saw this whole debate swirling on Twitter and Facebook about this. So then I saw a friend of mine who is a local conservative activist, a young girl who lives in town. Her name is Amber McDonough. She's also known as Liberty Girl. You can find her on Twitter at LibertyGirl1791, and she's really engaged with what's going on locally and politically. And I thought I would bring her on because she wrote a blog on this very subject. And here she is. How are you doing, Amber?
Hey, Yaffee. How are you?
I am good. I'm glad to have you on. First,
I'm excited to be here.
Good. First off, where do people find your blog?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? You're breaking up.
Where do people find your blog?
At LibertyGirl1791.wordpress.com.
All right. So, well, first off, what made you interested in doing this blog? What inspired you to write about the Civil War?
You know, like you said in the segment before, the media, they seem to have this narrative they try to preach to us, to have us to think a certain way, to do a certain way. And I'm so tired of being told that I can't actually know everything that happened. So I did this specific blog because I wanted to give everybody an understanding of the entire picture of the Civil War rather than just the states' rights side, rather than just decide about the tariffs or just decide about the slavery. I wanted to give an overall view of the possibility, what it might be.
Right. So you did your research, and what did you find? I mean, you wrote about it in your blog, which you can find there, or you can just Find her on Twitter at LibertyGirl1791. Amber, what did you find in the blog? What did your research come out with?
Well, when I was a kid, I was always taught that old saying, there's three sides of the story, his side, her side, and the truth.
Right.
And when I was doing the research, I noticed a lot about when you're hitting the point about slavery, a lot of people thought Abraham Lincoln as, I guess you could say, an activist for equality of the slaves.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, Abraham Lincoln, during his speeches and debates that he had with Stephen Douglas, made a lot of comments about how he didn't want any equality amongst the slaves with these citizens of the United States.
Right.
I
was just gonna say, didn't he have a plan to locate them somewhere else and basically have them make their own separate colony? Wasn't that one of his ideas?
Yes, he actually supported sending the slaves to a local colony made by the Americans in, I believe it was 1821. It was called Liberia at the time. So,
yeah. Awesome. So you say you were going to go into the whole truth, and you were saying Lincoln was not just about equality, kind of like what we are about now. So what caused the Civil War then? What was the main cause of all this?
I honestly believe when it comes to the cause of the war, I don't believe it was one initiative narrative.
Okay.
I think it was a little bit of both. I believe the slavery issue played a large role in it, but I also believe states' rights. And if you look at different points I made in the blog itself, it talks about the tariffs that actually were impeded on the South for exporting and importing goods to and from England.
Right, and it had a negative effect on the South, which obviously upset the South. And the North, because it was almost like two different countries at the time in terms of economically. Very agrarian in the South, but you had manufacturing base in the North, which is pretty much why the North won the Civil War. So I'm guessing the South really didn't like that tariff.
No, exactly.
Okay.
It was up to almost 40% worth of taxes if they were to export or import anything.
All right, so we had the tariff, and I know the tariff was around for a little while, and there was other tariffs in the past as well. Where does slavery come in then?
Slavery came along in the line of, you see it a lot when you read the Confederate States Constitution, where they actually made points several times that you could not be a part of the Confederate States without actually being a slave state.
Interesting.
Which kind of defeats the whole purpose of states' rights if you're telling a state they can't be something.
Yeah, and I know, and I posted on my social media as well, I know that a lot of the declarations of secession from these states complained that the North was getting rid of their rights to hold slaves, and they saw it as property, but they all said something about slavery. So I'm reading that and I'm thinking, well, you can't say slavery wasn't a part of this then, because they obviously were upset about something, right?
Yes, and you're exactly right. But when it comes to the secession letters, they never actually specifically say that the North had impeded on their states' rights. Like in our Declaration of Independence, it outlines what the king did, what we did, and then the retaliation of that. Well, in the secession letters, it never really actually stated that, but more or less stated they had the right, because of the Constitution, to secede.
Right. Interesting. So, when did they all secede? Wasn't it right after Abraham Lincoln got elected? Or
the secession, I believe, was a couple of months after.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure the exact. I believe it was in March or April.
Yeah, and obviously different states did it at different times. It wasn't like they all seceded at once. A lot of times when I talk to people about this, they'll say, well, some of the northern states had slaves as well. So if it was about slavery, then why did they allow the northern states to keep slaves as well? Why do you think that might have been?
And see, this is my point about having that narrow mindset that it was only about one thing or another. I think it had a collage on both states and states' rights, because the point about the North having slaves, it wasn't entirely focused on slavery, but did play a part in it.
Right. Awesome. Well, the main reason I brought you on, and because I really like the blog, because I thought, and I would encourage people to go read it. The website, give your website out again.
The website is www.libertygirl1791.wordpress.com.
Yeah, and I would encourage people to read because from what the debate, you were right. People were so narrowly focused, and everything I had read was that, yeah, both played a role. Obviously, the tariffs played a role. Obviously, states' right played a role. But to me, it's impossible to ignore the slavery aspect, especially since I think a lot of the motivations for interfering with tariffs and state rights was slavery. And I know a lot of this debate, especially with the Republican Party, was not to allow slavery to expand in the new territories, which the South really wanted to expand slavery into the new territories to the West that were coming in to the United States. So I know that was a big part of it. And the fact is that most of them seceded after Abraham Lincoln was elected. So they saw Abraham Lincoln as somewhat of an abolition president. But yeah, I'll encourage everybody to go read the book because it's very balanced. There's research in it, and that's why I brought you on. And Amber, I'll give you the last word.
Like you said, just go to visit the website, libertygirl1791.wordpress.com, and you'll have links to the secession papers, the Confederate, the inauguration, the everything you can. It's all there for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Amber, very much for being on the show.
Thank you.
All right, well, we're gonna have to get her on again. She's good. She's good. She was a little nervous, but she's good. She's young. She's younger than me, and she's like very into politics, a local activist, and some local Tea Party groups, and all that stuff. And I'll have to get her take on some of the candidates and stuff in the future. The Civil War thing fascinates me because when I read about it, yeah, they're right. They allowed slavery to continue in a lot of the border states, and in the North, and the main reason was Lincoln's main purpose, from everything I've read, was to save the Union. He wanted to do everything to save the Union. Now, eventually, ending slavery came out of that, and he was pretty much against slavery, but he didn't want to totally ban slavery. He said, when I become president, that's not my goal, because he knew that would separate the Union. His main purpose, and this is why at the beginning of the country, the Founding Fathers did the same thing, because a lot of them were against slavery too. But their main goal was to preserve the Union, and we'll worry about the slavery issue later. But it came to head in the Civil War, and obviously, my main point is this. While the slavery was not the main cause of the Civil War, or I think it was one of the main causes, I do not think the Civil War would have ever happened if it were not for slavery. Like, if slavery had never happened in this country, I really don't think the Civil War would have happened. Does that mean it was the only cause of the Civil War? No, but I would encourage people to read her blog. All right, in the next segment, I have to get into, of course, the Jenner formerly known as Bruce. I have to get she talked at the ESPY Awards, received the Courage Award, and we're going to listen to what she said at the awards, and I have to give my take. I've been holding it in for the past couple days, and I have to get it out. So 407-674-1025, you're listening to Beyond Reason Radio, News Radio 1025 WFLA, BeyondReasonRadio.com.
If you like Beyond Reason Radio, well, make sure to show it by liking the Facebook page at facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio. Subscribe to the Beyond Reason podcast today on your Stitcher app and hear the voice of reason anytime.
Welcome back to the show, Beyond Reason Radio. We talk faith, culture, and politics every Friday night at 8 here on News Radio 1025 WFLA, or you can still catch us on 540 AM. That's if you're in the Orlando area. You can catch us anywhere on the iHeartRadio app. Just search News Radio 1025 WFLA, or you can go to my website and catch us. You can catch it live or listen to the podcast on my website, BeyondReasonRadio.com. So, Mike, I haven't got you in the show as much today, so I wanted to get your take on something. Did you catch the ESPY Awards?
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did. And I'm guessing you caught Bruce, Caitlyn Jenner at the ESPY Awards.
Yes, Caitlyn's speech was definitely the big one for this year. It's been all over the internet. I saw the whole thing.
And what'd you think?
I honestly was slightly impressed.
slightly impressed. Now, you're not the only one. Even Bud admitted that he was kind of impressed.
Yeah, I was impressed. Mostly because everything about Caitlyn's transformation seems so far to be like a publicity stunt, but seemed like she actually spoke from the heart at this one, and there's a lot of truth behind the stuff she was talking about, what's going on with people who are like her.
All right.
That's what I think.
You're much nicer than I am. Okay, we're going to play some cuts here of Jenner at the ESPY Awards, and then I have to give my take on what he... By the way, I don't know what to call her, because he still has man parts.
It's tough. It's a tough thing to do, figure out the proper way to do it.
But he didn't even have the full surgery. He still has man parts. He really does. I'm not joking. A lot of people don't know
How
that.
do you know this?
It's everywhere. Come on. I did not check. I did not go under her skirt and check. Okay.
Yeah, but no, it's kind of clear to see it that the full transformation is done. I mean, her voice is still slightly deep, and
right. And the main issue is this courage? But this is what Jenner had to say at the ESPYs.
To promote a very simple idea: accepting people for who they are, accepting people's differences.
Now, here's one thing. This is my initial thought when I heard that. You didn't accept yourself for who you were. We're supposed to accept you, but you didn't accept yourself for who you were. The fact is, you are a man. That's who you were, but you couldn't accept that. So you went to spend thousands of dollars on surgery to change that. But we're supposed to accept you. Fine, whatever. I get that. The other thought I had was, you say accept people for who they are. I want to believe that you mean acceptance, but you don't mean acceptance. What you want is praise. What you want is us not only to accept you, we accept you, you're allowed to do what you want, but you want us to validate you and praise you and give you awards for what you do. In fact, in the next cut I have here, he makes that point.
Trans people deserve something vital. They deserve your respect.
Why? Respect has to be earned. Why do you deserve our respect? Yes, we live in a free society. Yes, you can do what you want. That's the benefits of a free society. Yes, we can accept you or whatever, but I just don't see that's what's happening here.
I feel like by respect, she means just like the basic respect you give any other person. That's what I think.
Okay, you give them the benefit of the doubt. Let me tell you why I'm a little skeptical of that. And this is something a friend of mine and I were talking about. He was giving me this information. He heard a theory that, this all started with his Bruce Jenner's Diane Sawyer interview. He heard a theory that the reason why ESPN is giving the ESPY Award, it was on ABC this year, why they're giving the ESPY Award, the Courage Award, to him this year, was he was going to refuse to do that interview on ABC unless he approached them. This is all speculation and theory, but I wouldn't surprise me. He approached them and said, you got to give me this award, I won't do that interview. And then he made it a whole big deal about this will be on the reality TV show and I helped them. And apparently the ESPYs were a little nervous about it at first, but then they agreed because they didn't want to lose that interview. I just don't buy this whole thing that, we just want to accept. Because in today's society, and it's not just this, it's everything. It's not just about acceptance. You want us to validate you. You want us to praise you. You want us to say this is good. What Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner did is good. Well, I can accept that you have the right to do it, but I'm not going to sit here behind this microphone and say it was good. To me, you're destroying your body. To me, there's confusion. To me, you didn't accept for who you were. And I'm supposed to praise you as a role model? I don't think so. Now, if I decided, what if I got surgery today? Because I think I'm a bird, Mike. I'm a bird. So I'm going to have surgery, and I'm going to add wings to my arms. I have wings and fly around, so I can fly around like a bird. Do you think I would get a Courage Award? Would I deserve a Courage Award? Because I'm inside, on the outside I'm a human being. Inside, I'm a bird, Mike. I'm a bird. And I should be accepted and praised for who I am. This is just my whole thing. When we're using our reason and our rational thought, we see something like this, we should be able to say, something's not right here. But we're too afraid to do that. Acceptance is one thing. Praise, courage for getting plastic surgery. That's all you did is get plastic surgery. That's courageous? Oh, that's my take. I know a lot of you will disagree with me. I'm going to be on vacation for the next couple weeks, but we have some great guest hosts. Producer Mike's going to fill in next week. I have a great guest host after that. You're listening to Beyond Reason Radio, News Radio 102.5 WFLA. And I'll catch you guys again.
I look inside.